Welcome, parents, to Modern World History. My name's Don Lober. I'll be your son or daughter's teacher for the year. My contact information is up there, my phone and email. Just to give you a little background information about me, I've been teaching at Francis Health Central since 2005, and I have taught Modern World History for the entire time. So hopefully that will be of benefit to your child, having a teacher that's pretty well versed on the topic. The course objective, just want to give you a little information on that. Students are going to learn a great deal about world history starting around the year 1300 AD and kind of working all the way to the present. Obviously, we can't talk about every continent or region, but we do a pretty good job of moving around and covering a lot of the most important topics that happen in a particular time frame. So, the goal is just as they become a little bit more knowledgeable about history, they'll see that trends, as the old saying goes, history has a tendency to repeat itself. So hopefully they'll kind of pick up on that. And then the other big idea that with history is that we don't want students to think that they need to, simply memorize a series of names and dates. It's a little bit more to it than that. History events in history rarely happen in isolation. And what we want the kids to see is that, events are connected and that there's, causes and effects of everything. And if they can kind of see how there are causes and effects, it just makes it a lot easier to learn the course and hopefully kind of remember it for a longer period of time. Just want to go over some quick classroom procedures. Primary mode of instruction will be lecture, not always, but primarily. And then PowerPoints will accompany those, and those will be posted on Canvas for students to review. Sometimes I'll do videos, and when that's the case, those will also be posted, or at least a link will be posted on Canvas. So students will need to read their texts. I'll go into a little bit later what that means. They won't receive a textbook, but I will give, from time to time, I'll give some reading quizzes just to make sure that they do that. So the textbooks, although they won't be issued, I kind of will create handout or text packets of things that I've created over the number of years that I've taught this course, and it just, I think I do a better job of really kind of getting to the nuts and bolts of what they need to know, and in some instances I can be a little bit more thorough with the information that I provide them. Just to kind of ensure that they're doing the reading as well, they'll have some study guides that they'll need to complete, so those questions will be geared specifically to the notes that they're going to be reading, or the packets of text that they receive. Students will be expected to participate in class. A lot of this kind of goes without saying. We will do some presentations in this class, and I think that's important for students to develop that oral presentation skill, and so kind of look for that as well. Tests will be given at the end of each unit, and since I don't offer retakes, it's important that students study to prepare for the test, and so I really think it's a good idea to study 2 to 3 hours, maybe even longer, over a couple of days. So try to avoid cramming for the tests. An incentive that I give for these students that do well on the test, if they score an A, I will give them a no homework pass, and they can use that for another assignment, or they can save it up for the end of the quarter and turn it in for extra credit, so that's nice. Another form of extra credit will be after school movies that I'll show either immediately after school or maybe like 5 to 7 in the evening. So students that show up for that will just receive extra credit for being there, and of course if they have a conflict, they can learn how to do it on their own, but they can just watch the movie and type and submit a reflection on that, so that will allow them to receive extra credit. Some quick rules and expectations. This, I'm sure you're going to hear this a lot from your child's teachers. Cell phones and headphones are a huge distraction, so please impress upon your son or daughter to keep their cell phones away, and that's going to be something that I'm going to enforce, and if I have to use disciplinary measures like after-school detentions, I certainly will. So when students are absent, it's going to be important for them to check Canvas to find out about their missing assignments. Academic dishonesty obviously won't be tolerated. All right, so if students turn in assignments late, they will be docked 50%, so it's important for them to turn things in on time, and usually they have multiple days in which to complete assignments. So here's another little thing. I usually tell students, hey, a quiz or a test is coming up, and that they'll be notified about that for several days, but sometimes they may miss the day before the quiz or the test, and then they'll think when they come in that they don't have to take the test, and I'm going to ask that they do. And that's because I never just spring those. Those are been communicated out for many days. Now, if they've missed multiple days, I certainly will grant an extension, and if there was just something that, I'm a flexible and fair person, so if there's something kind of out of the ordinary that happened, just have your son or daughter pull me aside and kind of share with me what's going on, and we can work that out. But that's just the general rule, so want to make sure everybody's clear on that. If you're interested, these are the topics that we're going to be studying. Unit 1 is going to be kind of an introductory unit. We have to cover some things with religion, so we'll do that. We'll talk a little bit about the late Middle Ages in Europe, and the approximate time period will be about 3 weeks. Then we'll get into the Renaissance and the Reformation. We'll talk about European exploration, and then we'll kind of move over to China and Japan. We'll move back to Europe and talk about absolutism, and then also continue with Europe talking about the Enlightenment and the Scientific Revolution. We'll discuss not only the American and French Revolution, but also some Latin American revolutions, and that will help round out semester 1. For semester 2, we'll talk about industrialization, something called nationalism, which not only affects Europe, but pretty much the whole world in many aspects. We'll talk about imperialism, European imperialism in Africa and Asia, World War I, World War II, and then just kind of like a hodgepodge of topics that took place in the 20th century before the course ends. So those are the types of things that we'll be discussing this year. I included some pretty obvious things on how to be successful in this class. Of course, I want the students to read, and it might be important for your kid to pick up a pocket dictionary, because I think that a lot of times they encounter words they're unfamiliar with, and to aid their vocabulary, it would be important to do that. Take notes, participate, structure some time at home, consistently set aside time for homework, and then, of course, the importance of studying for tests. Be here as much as possible, and if you're not successful, be resilient. Don't give up. Studies show that if you're willing to work at it, you can be successful over time. And then certainly if they are struggling, please see me for help. Encourage them to do that, to advocate for themselves. So those are the things that I'm asking students to do to be successful in this class. The grades are pretty standard. The class is weighted, so 60% of the grades will come from quizzes, tests, and projects, and everything else will be worth 40%. Some supplies that every student should have. They should have a folder for this class, a notebook, as I said earlier, a dictionary, some highlighters, and red pens for when we grade. And we do some things on the whiteboard, so I might ask you to pick up a marker. One or two would be good. So thanks for tuning in, and I think we'll have a great year. But please, at any time, if you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you very much.